Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel, Think Outside the Board. I'm your host, Brian Toohey, and today I am launching a new video series. It's going to be called The First Impressions, and this series is going to focus on new to the world games. So what that means is that if I play an older game, if I play something like Galaxy Trucker that's been out for a while, that's not going to qualify for this series. You're not going to see a first impressions of Galaxy Trucker. And the reason is that I'm trying to specifically make this series for games that are new to the world. So they've either just had their Kickstarter ship out, or these are retail games that just released. My goal here is to get videos up very quickly to give people a taste of a game that is brand new, oftentimes when there really aren't videos out there. You know, especially if it's gone to retail, there aren't going to be the kind of grouping of Kickstarter videos that people made for the Kickstarter campaign. So one small caveat is that this is a new series. I'm also kind of launching a lot of new content on YouTube right now. And so I am going to put out a bunch of these first impressions videos dating back, I think I've decided, dating back to November. Now that means that in the next couple weeks, you're going to see a bunch of these first impressions videos coming, and they are going to be for the following games: Chronicles of Crime 1400, Fossilis, Last Aurora, Seven Bridges, Century Golem Edition and Endless World, Rococo Deluxe Edition, Whistle Mountain, Dwellings of Eldervale, Waste Knights, and Excavation Earth. And then, following those videos, I already have games coming in the next couple months, some retail games, some Kickstarter games. I'll be doing first impressions videos for those games, and those games include Dice Throne Adventures, Glenmore 2 Highland Games, Import Export Definitive Edition, Kanban EV, Shasen, Sleeping Gods, Stronghold, Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down, Unsettled, and Venice. And then there's a couple of retail games that'll probably get the treatment, like Dune Imperium, which has been out for a little while, but not very long, and possibly Praga Caput Regni. And then from there, I'm going to keep producing this series with new games as they land. So as I said, the purpose of this series is to get videos out quickly when the games are brand new, which means that I'm not going to be doing a full teach of the game. It's not going to be a full review. It's going to be more of a look at the game, you know, the board, the components, and just to kind of give you a taste of things. Hopefully enough of a taste for you to understand if you like the game and it's something you might want to buy. I will be making these videos after I play the game once, so at least I'll still have, you know, at least a full play of the game, so I will have some knowledge of what I'm talking about. It won't just be the blind leading the blind. But they'll probably all be produced after just one play, so I won't have extensive experience with these games. I'll have just enough to give you a taste. And that's what these videos will be. They will be a taste. Hopefully enough of a taste for you to make a decision if it's something you want to eat, metaphorically. Now, with many of these games, the first impressions video will be a first step, and then I will go on later to produce a full review and teach. And definitely, when I'm posting these videos, please comment in the comment sections if it's something that you want to hear more about. If you want a full teach and review, please let me know. And if you just have questions about the game, also in the comment section, we can have a conversation, we can talk about it. So this game right up here, Chronicles of Crime 1400, this is going to kick off the series with this video right here. So I'm going to show you how it plays kind of in general, show you some things about the game, the components, and then I'll come back to this camera setup and I'll give you my opinion on it. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Chronicles of Crime 1400 and the Millennium series. So if you've bought this retail, you're just going to have this box. You're going to have this nice little insert here. And there are going to be some cards here and some cards here. All the things you need. If, however, you also got the Millennium series through the Kickstarter, that means you're going to have 1400, 1900, 2400, and the Chronicles of Time, which offers scenarios that kind of span all 3 ages, and they're all going to fit in this bigger box. So this insert's going to look like this. And right now, we're only going to be talking about 1400. So you'll be taking these dream cards. Those are actually supposed to be over here. These cards, and this first set of location boards. Now you may also have this big, nice neoprene mat, and as you can see, it's double-edged stitching, so it's very nice. It's not gonna fray or anything. If you don't have this big thing, don't worry, the game comes with this player board. This duplicates this, and it doesn't give you a space for the cards, but you don't really need that. You can put that anywhere you want on your table. And then the rest of this is just, you know, space to play. It's just kind of a general generic design. It's not very specific to this game. So you're going to be using these boards in Chronicles of Crime, and you can kind of just put them out all over this thing. So you're going to have several different decks with Chronicles of Crime. You're going to have this card, which is your dog. You're always going to have your dog with you. And there's a lot of fun stuff that happens in the game with the dog. You'll also have this home board. And these are all people that will help you during the case. Your dog can kind of sniff items that you find. Maybe he'll catch a scent and he'll be able to take that scent elsewhere. You can always go to your home where you have a brother the monk who will be able to answer questions for you about religious objects or religious texts or just kind of religion in general. You have your sister who's sort of an antiques dealer, and she can answer questions about items that you find, antique items. And then you have your brother who, I believe he's a spy, and he knows a lot about various people, especially people related to the government or, you know, administrative types. Also kind of, you know, criminals and things like that. He'll know about generally all those kinds of people. So you're always going to have these two things here. In the beginning of any game, there's a tutorial that comes with the game, and there are also 4 cases. So you have kind of 4.5 cases. And at the beginning of every one of these, you're going to draw specific dream cards, vision cards, and these will give you, these are supposed to be like dreams that you've actually had. And generally I've found that once you kind of understand who the people on the dream cards are and what they're doing and, you know, what the event was and the actions of that event, once you can kind of parse together all these dream cards, you generally know the crime and its solution. Okay, there will also be these location boards which will come out throughout the game. And there'll be something in the app that you're using because this game is very app-based. Everything is going to come from an app. And as you can see, there are QR codes on, well, everything, right? And you're going to be scanning in these QR codes. And that's generally the gameplay, is scanning these QR codes, and they'll tell you something. So occasionally, the app will tell you to put out a certain location board. You'll find a new location. Sometimes it will tell you a certain person is there, and then you'll look up the person's number, and you'll just place them at that location. So these are your location boards. These are your people. And when you're not fishing them out because the app told you to do so, you can keep them over here. You'll also have these cards, which are items. These are very specific items. These ones with this like kind of helix type star on it. So these will come out, and when these enter the game, usually it's something very, very specific. to the case. It's a very specific item. And you can even see that, these have drawings on them, and they're very specific drawings. Whereas these other item cards are very, very general, and they tend to show you words on things. So essentially how this game will play is that you'll have these cards. You'll start the game in some kind of location where a crime has happened, and the app will tell you to look around the crime scene. There are some goggles that you can buy, some 3D goggles, which will make the scene sort of even more three-dimensional. But if you don't have that, it's okay. The app itself works really well. You just kind of hold up your phone and you kind of tilt it and look around, and you'll see things in a crime scene. And the idea is that you're going to shout out the different things you see, anything that seems relevant or out of the ordinary. And the other players will be looking through these items and finding things that you're talking about, things that you're maybe finding at the crime scene. Once that little kind of examination of the crime scene is done, you will take your phone and you'll scan all of the QR codes on the items that you found. And some of them will be completely irrelevant. Some of them will be important. And if it's something that you're finding, if it's an item that you found and you know where it is, it's something that you've seen, it's generally going to slot into one of these red spaces over here. And this is, something important to your investigation. Sometimes someone will tell you about an object, or you'll hear about it through the grapevine. So if that happens, you'll put that card over here in the blue section, which means you don't have that item yet, but you need to find it. You probably need to find it to solve the case. Usually it's critical. But the stuff that you actually have found will go in the red. The stuff that you know about but you haven't found will go in the blue. Similarly, you may hear about people. You may hear about someone that's an important person, but you haven't met them yet. So if you find a person like that, you're going to put them here in these spaces. And then later on, if you find out that, oh, this person is in this location, you can always move them to that location. So these are really the components of the game and in general the gameplay. You've got the location boards, you've got the different people you're going to be dealing with, and the different items. And as I said, you can either use the QR codes to scan the items to find out more information about them, or you can talk to people. And once you're talking to someone and you're in a conversation, you can ask a person about another person, or you can ask a person about objects. The only thing that you can't ask someone about is a location, because scanning in the location will just send you to that location. So you're just going to be talking to people, interviewing them. I suppose it takes its cues from, Sherlock Holmes, but instead of being booklet based, where you're, shuffling around a booklet looking up narrative paragraphs, you're going to be getting your information and your clues and your story from the app. And once you've finished the game, usually at a certain point, it'll tell you you have to solve a case. You'll need to go back to a location. Sometimes it's home. And then you'll start kind of a test. And you'll have to answer certain questions. Usually to answer those questions, you will again scan the QR codes and you'll get a score. And if you score 100, sometimes you can even get bonus points and score over 100. But if you score 100 or more, you've done a very good job solving the case. If there are huge chunks where you haven't scored the points, you may want to go back and start over and replay the scenario and try to find out more. But in general, this is the game. This is what's happening. These are the components. As you can see, the artwork on the cards and the location boards, the people, everything's really beautiful. The mat is well made and beautiful as well. So the components for this are really top notch. Whether or not you like this game probably is just going to come down to whether you like the gameplay style of scanning the QR codes and trying to solve a mystery that way. So I really like Chronicles of Crime 1400, and this game is my introduction into the series. I haven't played the original Chronicles of Crime game. I also haven't played Detective, a modern crime board game, which is very similar, but it was a game put out by a different publisher. So everything in this game is a new experience for me. I don't have previous experience with the IP. So obviously you saw that mat. It's gorgeous. It's really well made. I love it when they do the kind of double stitched edging around mats. It means that they're going to last for a really long time. The components across the board for this game are just top notch. And it's really all about the art. I mean, this is a game that's all about the art, the card art and the location art. And it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It definitely does what it needs to do kind of at the highest level. It's beautiful. Now, gameplay for this is minimal. You're going to be playing either by yourself, trying to solve the crime, or with a group of people, but there's not even a turn structure involved. It doesn't say, like, okay, we're going to move a player pawn around and you're going to take turns asking questions. It very much depends on the group figuring out, who's going to ask what or what they're going to do. Consequently, that means if you're going to play this game with a group of people, it needs to be a group of people that get along well together and respect each other. If you've got some really obnoxious people in your group who are kind of alpha gamers and want to strong arm the decision making away from other people, there's nothing built into this game to prevent that. So this is probably a bad game if you're playing with obnoxious people. Hopefully you're not playing with obnoxious people, but there's a lot of obnoxious people in the world. So, I mean, it happens, but maybe if your group has sort of this, very strong-willed alpha gamer type, pick another game. You want this game to be played with a group of nice, kind people that work well together. And I think this is a game that's very kind of easy to communicate whether or not you're going to like the game. I mean, I showed you kind of the components and the gameplay, and it's simple in its design. So I think just from what you've seen, you should have a pretty good idea if it's a game for you or not. Do you like scanning QR codes in over and over again and deciding who to ask about what and trying to solve a mystery? If you like that, you like this game. If you don't like that scanning thing, if you don't like app-based games, if you don't like kind of detective solving, then you're not going to like the game. We do need to talk about replayability a little bit here, and the reason is that these cases are specific. So everything in the case is written one way. It's going to be that way every time. When you solve the mystery is solved. You know the answers. There's no more gameplay for you. And Chronicles of Crime comes with a tutorial scenario and then 4 full scenarios, and they each have different difficulty levels. So the first scenario I think is easy. The tutorial is easy as well. The second scenario is medium difficulty. And I know the fourth one is challenging, and I forget if the third scenario is medium or challenging, but there's kind of a spread of difficulty. Personally, I've played the first 2 cases and the tutorial. I find that as the difficulty level increases, there are going to be things that happen in the scenarios that can sort of bottleneck your progress if you're not doing the right thing at the right time, which means you may not end up being able to have access to all the information that you need to solve the crime, which means you may need to replay the scenario a few times to be able to do everything and kind of score all the points that are available to be scored. There are a lot of times there are things that are a little bit outside the case that are kind of tangential, like a side thing that you can score points for. Those may be things you don't think of or see when you're just, on a first playthrough trying to solve the very specifics of the actual case. So it does add a little bit of replay value. You can go and play each case, I'd say half a dozen times max. Depends how much you catch. It depends what works with the way your mind works for a specific case. But I think most cases you're going to completely solve between 2 and 3 and half a dozen plays. Now, when you combine that with the fact that the game has 4 scenarios and a tutorial, I'm guessing there's probably about 15 to 40 hours of gameplay in the box, depending on you, depending on how much you want to go back and retread old ground just to get those last couple things. If you don't really want to do that, if you only want to play a case once or twice, kind of like my fiance, Kristen, she doesn't really want to redo everything over and over. She finds it kind of boring and tedious. So if you have that same kind of mindset and you just want to, have that new experience, solve the crime, maybe if you really botch it, go back, try to solve it better, and then you're kind of done. If you're on that side of the spectrum, probably 15 hours is going to be the max for you. If you're someone who wants to go through and sort of rediscover every little thing and you don't mind replaying a lot of the same things along the way, you might be able to stretch it out to about 40 hours of gameplay. And the game retails, the MSRP is for $30. You can catch it right now on a lot of online retailer specials for about 20 bucks. So that's kind of your price and your entertainment factor. You're getting about 15 to 40 hours of gameplay for 20 to 30 bucks. So whether you think that is worthwhile for you, that's your decision. Also, you're going to need an internet connection to be able to play this game because you need that app. So if you're trying to play at camping or in a cabin in the woods somewhere where you don't have good internet connection, it's not going to work. Also, if you don't like app-based gameplay at all, and I see both sides of it, so I understand people who just want that kind of like analog on the table experience. But if that is what you're looking for, this isn't going to help because you do have to play this with an app. A lot of the kind of responses and the narrative, it's all controlled and given to you by this app. Now, the cases are really well written. The characters are very three-dimensional. It feels like a lived-in world. There's a lot of humor about it. There's a lot of great stuff with the dog. Pretty much whenever you do something with the dog to a person or an object, there's some kind of response or dialogue or description that's charming or funny in some way. And that's true as well, kind of across the board. Like, yes, you are solving crimes in 1700s, but it's not a two-dimensional experience. It feels very three-dimensional. It feels very well written. The dialogues have a lot of depth and character and color to them. So as far as these games go, if you're cool with the QR codes, you're cool with the app, you're cool with the the detective solving kind of limited playability thing, for that section of games, this thing is very, very well produced. Highly recommend. There can also be situations where characters will gossip about each other, which creates very kind of interesting, funny dynamics. There are situations where you might go to see a character at one location and then they move and they go to another location. Sometimes characters will tell you things at some locations that they won't tell you at other locations because they're worried about people listening. Sometimes you could anger a character and then they kind of disappear from the game and they won't speak to you anymore. That can really hamper your process, and that can also mean that you may need to kind of replay it if there is information or things you're not going to be able to have access to. And if you don't like that kind of repetitive gameplay, that could be sort of a tick off that box of like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to have to replay that again. But within them doing that, it's very well handled and it's very entertaining, and there's a lot of character behind it. So I definitely would put this game more in the box of being an experience than a game. I think because there's no real turn structure, and it's not a Euro, it's not a game with goals where you're trying to do something. It is essentially a narrative experience, and you're having this thing. You have input. It plays like a choose your own adventure book or one of those old kind of text adventure video games, or later when Sierra Online got into the game, they did graphic adventures. But it feels like that, where there is something you're trying to figure out. So if this video was helpful to you, please like it, please subscribe. If you want to receive a notification when I publish future videos, hit the alarm bell after you've subscribed. And as you know from the top, there are going to be a lot of these first impressions videos coming. So if this is something that you're responding to, you might want to do that. And finally, if you have any questions, any comments, put them in the comment section below. I'll try to kind of stay up to date and answer everything, especially if it's considerate and well-intentioned. And let me know. Let me know if this is a game that you want me to produce a full teach and review for. It's something that I'm considering, but I would like to play all the cases before I do that, so I kind of have a place of experience and knowledge when I speak about it. I know some reviewers will just play the tutorial, maybe a case, and do a review, but I figure for a full review, let me have a full experience of the game first. But if that's something you'd like to see, if you'd like to have more content about Chronicles of Crime 1400, let me know below. So thank you very much for supporting my channel, and I will see you in the next video.